The crowds asked John the Baptist, "What should we do?" He said to them in reply, "Whoever has 2 cloaks should share with the person who has none, and whoever has food should do likewise." Even tax collectors came to be baptized, and they said to him, "Teacher, what should we do?" He answered them, "Stop collecting more than what is prescribed." Soldiers also asked him, "And what is it that we should do?" He told them, "Do not practice extortion, do not falsely accuse anyone, and be satisfied with your wages." Now the people were filled with expectation, and all were asking in their hearts whether John might be the Christ. John answered them all, saying, "I am baptizing you with water, but one mightier than I is coming. I am not worthy to loosen the thongs of his sandals. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. His winnowing fan is in his hand to clear his threshing floor and to gather the wheat into his barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire." Exhorting them in many other ways, he preached good news to the people. The Gospel of the Lord.
Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Gaudete in Domino semper, ito dico gaudete. Rejoice in the Lord always. That's the words that St. Paul says today. That is why today is called Gaudete Sunday, Rejoice Sunday. That is why today, because of this sense of rejoicing, this sense of joyfulness, Holy Mother Church sets aside the violet of these past 2 weeks and that which we will once again impose next Sunday, to pause for a minute, if you will, to celebrate and rejoice because of the nearness of the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. St. Paul, in those words to the Philippians, says the word rejoice, not as a suggestion, not as, wouldn't it be nice if you did that? The words that St. Paul says today are a direct command. Rejoice. You better do it. You gotta do it. Rejoice. And then he goes so far as to say something which is a little bit, honestly, uncomfortable for me. Always, always and at all times, rejoice. Rejoice always. Even when a terrible tornado has hit Kentucky and 4 other states, killing at least 80 people. Rejoice! Even when we are still in the midst of a worldwide pandemic and Omicron has come to Miami. Rejoice! Rejoice! Even though inflation is to the roof and economic instability is all around us. Rejoice! Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, St. Paul says, I say rejoice. Well, in order to do that, I think, we have to decide that rejoicing and being happy are not necessarily the same thing. Happiness is what we say we all want. I just want to be happy. But happiness is something which comes and something which goes. Happiness really is an emotion. We eat ice cream and we're happy until we finish eating the ice cream. And then we're unhappy because we already ate the ice cream and there is no more. Being joyful, however, is a little different. At least it should be. Joyful and rejoicing has to do with a state of being. Joyfulness, being joyful, is something which is deep-seated, an abiding recognition of a presence, an abiding recognition and a response to the hope that presence brings us. In other words, that even though things may not be perfect here and now, we are not alone. We are accompanied. We have been received and embraced by someone who loves us even more than we love ourselves, someone who knows us even more than we know ourselves, someone who cares for us even more than we care for ourselves. And that person is God himself. And because we know that, because we feel that, because we live that presence of Jesus in our lives here and now, we're going to be okay. With that recognition that there is more to this life, as beautiful as this life is, as wonderful as this life is, there's more to this life, there's more to the here and now than what is here and now. And we were made for more. And that's why we rejoice, because we were made for more. We were not made for tornadoes. We were not made for instability. We were not made for sickness and death. We were made for more. And because of that recognition, we rejoice, even in the midst of that. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say, rejoice. In medieval days, it was very common to find in churches, and especially cathedrals, we have a cathedral here, something which is very interesting called the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of Fortune was not Vanna White and Pat Sajak, even though that's my mother's favorite show. Nevertheless, the Wheel of Fortune was something much deeper than that. The Wheel of Fortune came from an even more ancient tradition. The Wheel of Fortune, however, in Christian terms, was basically a wheel, a very large wheel. And that wheel always had certain elements which were very constant. The first element which hit your eye was at the top of the wheel there would always be someone dressed like a king with a crown upon his head. And at the very bottom of the wheel there would always be someone who was basically with the wheel on their neck, having lost everything at the very bottom of life. Dejected, despondent, and completely broke. But on either side of that wheel, you would see two other figures, actually the same person. And at one point you would see that person with the crown falling off their head on their way down. And on the other side, you would see that same person who had been with the wheel on its neck, now reaching up and regaining the crown on his way back. The Wheel of Fortune basically was how those medievals understood the reality of life, the vagaries of life, up and down. One day you're up, one day you're down. One day you have the crown on your head, the next day you have the wheel on your neck. Every day something new comes. There's a lot of instability, there's a lot of turning, Black Death, feudal lords, all kinds of ravages of society taking place constantly. One day you're up, one day you're down. One day you're up, one day you're down. It can make you nauseous with all of that spinning wheel. Ride the painted pony, let the spinning wheel fly. It gets you really a little bit unnerved after a while. But on the Wheel of Fortune, in those ancient cathedrals, there was always one figure in the very center. That figure was the person of Jesus. Jesus at the very heart. Jesus at the very center. The medieval men and women, they understood that to mean how we must live our lives in the midst of ride the painted pony, let the spinning wheel fly. That if we're always trying to grasp something, or always trying to regain what we just lost, if we're always trying to get success and wealth and power and pleasure and praise, then we're always going to be unsettled, we're always going to be upset, we're always going to be sad, and we will not have joy, because we're always in pursuit of something right here and right now, instead of going and looking for more. The more is at the center. The more is Jesus. The beautiful ancient Wheel of Fortune became, in Gothic cathedrals, the rose window. And in Chartres Cathedral, for instance, where is the most magnificent of all rose windows, you find this extraordinary display of human life, with all the vagaries of human life, with all of the difficulties of human life, with all of the blessings of human life. But at the very center of that extraordinarily huge rose window at Chartres Cathedral and many other cathedrals, once again, you find the person of Christ. In other words, to the extent that we go to Jesus, we find peace. To the extent we go to Jesus, we find joy. Peace and joy and hope are founded in Jesus Christ. In a relationship with Jesus, in a true relationship with Jesus, we find what our hearts truly desire. We find not happiness, slap-happy giddiness, but true, thoroughgoing peace. I'm going to get through this. It's going to be all right. It may not be as I had planned it. It may not be as I may want it. But if I stick with Christ, I will find my peace, and I will find my joy. In the gospel today, John the Baptizer is confronted by a whole bunch of people, and they ask him the same question over and over again. What should we do? What should we do? And we today have that same question. What should we do? What should I do to find peace? What should I find? What should I do to find joy? What should I do to find the center, Jesus Christ? Last Sunday I proposed to you 3 things, and I re-propose them today for you and for me. What should we do? We should pray. We need to pray more. We need to be more serious and more intentional in our prayer. To understand that prayer is not just saying a whole bunch of words, but prayer is entering into a relationship, a conversation with someone who is there, someone who loves us even greater than we love ourselves, someone who knows us even more than we know ourselves. Prayer is that conversation with God Himself. And not only our private and personal prayer, which must be part of our everyday, with every breath we take, we should be in conversation with the Lord, but our public prayer, the Holy Mass, Sunday by Sunday, we need to be here in this house of prayer. The Holy Mass, the Sunday Mass, must be truly and really the source, the foundation, and the summit, the highest point of our weekly life. The prayer, the Mass, is the prayer of prayers. And if we're not praying privately and publicly in the Holy Mass in our lives, there is something missing in our life. And we are keeping ourselves from the source of peace, the source of joy, Christ Himself. Every Monday here at the Cathedral in Advent, we have this marvelous experience of Advent evenings where we come together in an attitude of prayer before the Blessed Sacrament. Jesus Christ Himself, the center. We come to center ourselves in the person of Jesus. And we pray together the prayer of the Church, the evening prayer of the Church, Vespers, exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. We have that time to center ourselves in the center of the universe, Jesus Christ. Prayer. What should we do? Penance. Penance. To be more serious about penance. Penance means to do something to make up for the things that we have done wrong, to make things better, to reconcile. Penance means also detachment. That's the great advice of John the Baptizer today. Don't get all caught up in stuff. Don't get all caught up in things. Don't get all caught up in praise and pleasure and power. Detach yourselves from those things. Those things are good. Praise, power, possessions, health, success, wealth. Those are good things. But none of those things will fill up the center of our lives. None of those things will give us peace. And they certainly, because they are so much on the wheel of fortune, they come and they go, they will not give us joy. Detachment says, I recognize the good of these things, but I do not base my life, my person, my everything on these things which come and they go. Detachment, penance. And penance also means very specifically for us to go to confession. If we have passed this far in Holy Advent without humbling ourselves in the confessional, we still have something to do before Christmas comes. We must go to the sacrament of penance, to be reconciled with God, to have Jesus come once again to take his proper place in the center of our lives, to see all things as Christ sees them, to do all things as Christ does them, so we may find peace, so that we may find joy. What should we do? Charity. Charity. Charity is not just thinking good thoughts. Charity is doing good things. Charity is love in the flesh. Charity is going beyond, reaching beyond, doing beyond, going beyond our comfort level, helping someone that is in need, going and being with someone, speaking with someone, forgiving someone, talking with someone that we would not necessarily usually talk to, doing something for someone who not necessarily can do it for themselves. Charity are concrete acts of love. And as Jesus Christ says, whatsoever you do for the least of my brothers and sisters, you do for me. So charity then, concrete acts of love, bring us right to the heart, to the center, where we find Jesus Christ himself. What should we do? Pray more. What should we do? Be more serious of penance. What should we do? Be more charitable. To the extent that we go to Jesus, we find peace. To the extent that we go to Jesus, we find joy. If for some reason we don't feel very joyful right now, and I don't myself, pray more. Do more penance. Be more charitable. Go to Jesus. Go to the center. And we will find joy.